Welcome to the Soul Workspace, a sanctuary for lightworkers, visionaries, and soul-led creators. I'm Andrea, and it's my honor to be of service. All right. So, diving back into creating from fifth dimensional consciousness. So, if you're listening to this, you're probably maybe at the beginning of this creation journey. Maybe you're right in the middle of it and you feel stuck, or maybe things are going great. You haven't figured out already, this podcast is for light workers, people that feel like they have this big purpose in life to just help humanity. Maybe you don't quite know what it is. And the crazy thing is you don't need to know. I mean, let's be real. Our purpose is to anchor love and light, to just be that example of pure love. And of course, we will have this plan, this divine purpose where what are we going to create while we're here? And I remember in the beginning, well, it's funny because I still feel like I'm in the beginning, but I guess when I started realizing that creating is going to look different now. In the beginning, I didn't quite know, like I knew what I loved. I loved nature, and I just felt like more people needed to reconnect. I loved teaching children and everybody about animals. I loved and still love nerding out about animals and plants, and I love giving facts to people. I just love it. And so like I said in my previous episodes, like that's just what I've loved as a child. But it can feel frustrating if you feel like, I know I love this, but how is it going to translate? How can I make money? How could it look? I'm going to write this out. I'm going to brainstorm how it could look. But anytime I would try to do that, it didn't quite feel right. It felt pushed. I remember after I got my degree in zoology, I just thought, wow, okay, so there really isn't any job that I could get a bachelor's in zoology and truly do what I love. I had to go to more school, but I was totally burnt out. I could become a teacher. Like I love teaching. I still do, but I didn't quite want to be like a public school biology teacher. That didn't quite feel aligned either. But that's just what made logical sense, right? And so we can kind of do that. And when we do that, sure, that makes sense. But when you can feel intuitively or just something doesn't feel right, that's because that's not really it. That's not the way you take this path. So sometimes it can look a little chaotic, right? And like my life, you remember my story, things started just falling apart. I didn't quite know. And that's okay. Like we're supposed to go through what we're supposed to go through to really get to the point of our life where, we've shed a lot of stuff that no longer served us. And now we can really create from a better space than maybe we would have before. So the way you find, now you can do, there's lots of things out there. Your human design, all these things are out there, which are great modalities to figure out. It can be super helpful. But there's still going to be that question of how is it going to look? How is it going to play out and all of that? And like I said in the previous episode, it's literally just following the joy, following those nudges, that little push from your soul. What does it want to do? And it can be very difficult because, like I said, our logical mind, our ego steps in and we can have a lot of doubt. How is this going to work? So, okay, I'm doing this, but I feel like I'm wasting a lot of time that could be spent, you know, putting in effort into creating this thing. So it can be either you don't know what you want to do and you feel this frustration arise because you know you're meant for something. There's something there bubbling up, but you don't know like where to put this energy or this excitement, right? It can also be you feel like you really kind of do know what you want to do, but then you also aren't clear on how to get it going, right? And so either way, right, frustration arises. And we don't want to forget in these moments the point of these emotions, right? When you feel that frustration, we hold space for it. We invite it in for a cup of tea, sit down with it, and in that space, it will be transmuted. Maybe a lot of us know this, maybe you don't. But that's the whole point of this path of frustration where we realize everything we learned before, if you did, like I said before, the vision boards, the writing your goals, manifesting our desires, like creating a plan, writing it down, getting clear, thinking about it every day. When we realize it doesn't quite work that way, not that some of those tools aren't helpful, but some of us did it, it's not working, the frustration arises. And then we're like, okay, what now? What do I do now? And that feeling that arises is what needs to be felt and transmuted. It's part of the journey so you can start transforming into the person that you need to be when you start getting closer. Meaning, when you start getting closer to knowing what it is that you're creating, if that makes sense. So, everything has a purpose, and we can't forget that. There's a reason there's this frustration and confusion. We're having to let go of all these limiting beliefs. And again, I just want to reiterate, I'm not saying that everything we learned about how to make our dreams come true isn't incorrect. It's still good to have a journal. It's still good to write things down. Obviously, there's going to be parts where we need to use our logical brain. Again, I kind of mentioned that I want to buy land. Like, ultimately, like, I would just love to buy a bunch of raw land, put some rental cabins on there, some camping grounds, have an area where we could have a retreat center, have a community garden, ultimately like making a self-sustaining community where people could buy small plots of land and we just work together as a community. I mean, amazing. So there's going to be a time where I'm going to have to write stuff down. I'm going to have to get clear. I'm going to have to plan stuff out. So I just want to be clear that I'm not, I know I've said it a few times, and I just want y'all to understand that I'm not saying that that isn't correct or anything like that. It was more like, for me anyway, and maybe it's not like this for you, but for me, when I started getting excited about creating something, my dreams, and I remember I thought it was going to look this way, right? I thought I was going to be this health coach, and I still always wanted land and stuff, but I wasn't sure how I was going to get there. I found this company. I think I'll just be a health coach for right now. I do love helping people. Maybe this is it, this is it for now. And I mean, it was it for now, right? Everything in our life has a purpose. But obviously in my mind, it was going to go a lot different. And so, when I wrote everything down and I did all this, where at least what I was taught, right? I did personal development. I got to get my mindset right, which again had a purpose. It had made me mindful of my thoughts. It's good. It's always good to have a good perspective on things, right? But then there was always this promise, at least from the people I read from, that if you just get real clear, you put it out in the universe, like you're making a wish. Like the universe is a genie, it's just going to give you what you want. Your thoughts create things. That's just how it works, right? It's just how it works. So then when it doesn't work out and things are falling apart and you're like, I'm doing all of this, why is it not working? It's because it doesn't quite work like that. So there's that aspect of the when we learned about manifestation and our thoughts create things, right? There was that. And then there was also this hustle, hustle, hustle. Like you have to work yourself to the bone. You have to get up at 3 a.m., work, work, work until whatever, midnight, and then really get clear, organize your day, and then you're going to do that again, and you're going to wake up super early. You're not going to have a lot of sleep, but if you just stay focused and you work this hard to where you just don't know if you can do it anymore and you want to give up, but then you just keep going, that's when you'll make it. Again, it works for some people, not that it still couldn't work, right? And obviously, it makes sense to wake up early, right? In some cases, I'm not saying you can't. You get more time in the day. So again, there's logical aspects to all of this. But for me, because I'm a sensitive soul, I'm empathic, I'm just different. I came here for a different purpose. And so all those teachings for me just like they got me excited for a little bit. I learned some stuff, but I wasn't meant to carry that on with me. I was meant to learn about new things. And so there was that time in my life where I was like, this is honestly making me more stressed out. I'm watching my thoughts all the time. I'm judging myself all the time. I'm raising kids. So, of course, I'm exhausted. But then I think, how, I can't sleep in. Naps are not okay. So, like rest, I had this whole idea that rest was not good. Now, I did carry on some, limiting beliefs from just my family members, whatever, about sleeping in is lazy and whatnot. But it also was through all those teachings. Because, gosh, if I'm not waking up early, if I'm not doing all those things, starting my day just right, my life is not going to go how I want it to. And so I just feel like there's got to be more people out there that maybe experience something similar. And I know, like, I didn't know any different until I finally started going down a more spiritual path, realizing that it's quite different. Rest is important. So important, especially when everyone's on a healing and spiritual journey, but especially when you're aware of it and you start realizing, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted, I'm depressed, like I need to rest. I need to take a nap. It's not going to, I'm not going my life isn't going to fall apart if I do that. And how important it is, and how sometimes creating and going down the path of our goals and dreams, right? The thing we feel inspired to do, sometimes it can be the opposite of what we think, what our ego thinks, right? Sometimes progress is slowing down and going within. And honestly, I shouldn't say sometimes, it's really most of the time. And it's learning how to trust that intuition. If I feel that I need to rest today, or I'm feeling kind of my thoughts are all over the place, I'm kind of cranky, like whatever, that's a sign that you need to slow down. And it can be super hard to do, again, when you have that programming of hustle, or even just honestly, like sometimes I would feel it when I felt so inspired and excited. There was so much excitement for what I felt like I was creating, even if I didn't quite fully know. But then I could tell my body was telling me to take a break. And that can be, I don't know, I keep using the word confusing because it was hard to put it into words, where I'm like, okay, but I want to do all this. This feels good. I finally feel joy and excitement for creating something. And now you're telling me to slow down? I don't like this. And again, that's something to hold space for in love. And when I finally would just slow down and listen, take that nap, I felt so much better. It was almost like I would laugh and be like, okay, like I get it now. Oh my gosh, so like a toddler, right? They're kicking and screaming. They're having, like, they don't want to take a nap. They're playing, right? But they're starting to get cranky. Like my 4-year-old does not like to sleep. And it can be really hard for everybody. She starts to get super cranky and screaming and grumpy, throwing a fit. And if she would just to take a nap, she would feel so much better. But in her mind, she's fighting it. She wants to play. Why would I want to take a nap? It's so funny how there's kids even get offended if you say it like, oh, honey, you must be really tired. You probably need to take a nap. Oh, how dare you say that? And it's so funny, like how we carry that on with us, even as adults. Like, how dare you? How dare you, universe, say that I need to rest right now and slow down? Are you serious right now? Slow down? Why would I slow down? I'm supposed to keep going, 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 right? And also, it depends what culture you're raised in. And I think the way our society is set up. Maybe you aren't like, I'm an American, I live in America, and that's just kind of that the way our culture is, right? Work, work, work. And I know it's not always like that in all countries, but you start to learn how to trust your intuition, right? When you need to rest and slow down and go within. It's funny how when you do that, it's interesting how you realize things can manifest in your reality faster when you do those things versus if you were just to keep pushing yourself into exhaustion, to work hard, right? Work as much hours as you can towards your goals. But you end up just being more exhausted. Your nervous system is overstimulated. Sure, maybe you got some stuff done, but does it really feel that aligned? Right? Or you could follow your intuition, take that nap, rest, do whatever you need to do, go within, meditate, take a few days off. Then all of a sudden you're inspired, and all of a sudden things are just happening and clicking. And it feels better that way. So that's what I know is huge for me, learning about this new way of creating. And I say new, I guess it's not really new, it's just new for me, right? We're all ascending. And for me, I guess I just discovered this. I'm not the only one talking about this, you know? It just feels like this new thing arising. And it's just, it feels good, and it's just an amazing journey. So for me right now, I feel like I will have more insight as I go on. I say I'm just in the beginning. It's funny. I still don't really know what I'm creating. It's beautiful how uncertainty is such a gift. Uncertainty allows room for miracles to happen. But we don't like uncertainty, right? We want to feel certain on how this path is going to look, because we think if we're not certain, then chaos could ensue, right? We could attract negative things, or like nothing's going to be clear for the universe on what we want. So anything could just happen, things we don't want to happen. That's not how that works. Like I said in my previous episode, you are the universe. So the universe always knows what you want. So you don't have to worry about that. So let that go. But the uncertainty part can be hard, and uncertainty will definitely arise. But I started to change my relationship with uncertainty, because the feeling of that brings up fear. I started to realize that if I didn't just embrace uncertainty, then how could I make room for miracles? Like, miracles are always happening, but how could I have room for appreciation of them? To even have awareness that miracles are happening in my life? Because things aren't going the way I thought they would. I had all these really strict, rigid expectations of how my life was going to play out and everything. And when it wasn't, I wasn't seeing the miracles unfolding. And so that's also a reason why we have to step away. It's now time to step away from the vision boards and the really strict goals that we write out, and just say, gosh, I would love to create that. That would be beautiful if this played out in my life. But I am handing it over to the universe and trusting that it'll happen in perfect divine timing. It'll happen how it's supposed to. The ups and downs of life will play out in my favor, as always. And I leave all this room for it to unfold exactly how it's supposed to be. Because, like I said before, it always ends up being better than you imagined anyway. So embrace uncertainty as it arises. There seems to be a theme, right? Just every time in our life, in our stage of life and growth, in our phases we go through in seasons, we realize that things that come up are just meant to be loved and felt, because that's the healing and transmutation process happening. So it's not like you all of a sudden realize, oh, okay, creating in fifth dimensional consciousness is different. Sounds great. I'm just going to start on this path and it's going to be easy peasy. Like, it feels better most of the time. But like I said, then you have this self-doubt. You have all these things that arise. And that's just like it was before. But now we know what to do now. We know to hold space and to love ourselves through this. Because we know that as this burns through us, our ego is unraveling. And before we know it, in a few days, whatever, a week, however long, we know all of a sudden we're going to step and rise up out of the ashes and be a completely damn person. Wow, I don't even know what I'm saying right now. I'm like trying to cuss, but not really. I'm like trying to hold back. Should I cuss in this podcast? I don't know. We're going to rise up like a new person. The person we need to be to continue down this path of what we're trying to create. And it's beautiful. And it's scary, and it can be crazy. Not unlike before. I say before, like when I was in my 20s, I felt like that was just forever ago. I was a completely different person. There were still problems and issues. But gosh, am I a completely different person now, having gone through all that? So there's still going to be those things that arise. So it's okay right now if you're not clear, if you haven't figured that out yet. It's okay if you're listening to this and you're not clear on what you even should create. Like I said, just start doing something that brings you joy. That's just the beginning. And invite uncertainty in. And be like, man, I wish I knew the reason for this. But I'm going to, embrace uncertainty, because that creates space for me to appreciate the miracles in my life. It just feels so good. And then I'm telling you, before you know it, you will get this inspiration, and it might feel out of nowhere because it might not align with any of this creative stuff you were doing. You're painting, whatever, but then you get inspired to hold a breath work workshop or something, and it feels good. Like you feel ready. Maybe you've had the idea before. Sometimes we can have ideas, but we feel stuck, almost like this. It feels heavy. How is this going to work out? That's because it's just not time yet. Right now, it's kind of in your mind as a thought. But we're not, when it's ready to happen, it will happen. It will feel so aligned. You will have the energy for it. I feel, and now I think it's because I'm also a parent of 4 children, but I notice my energy levels. Like I all of a sudden had so much energy and excitement to do this podcast that I knew that it was time. If I felt exhausted, now I've always had the idea to do a podcast. I'm like, I feel like I will do one. And then I would kind of feel this stressed out, like, how is this going to work out? I have 4 kids. How is this going to work out? I'm never going to have time. So I never started it. And that's okay. Like, I kind of had to work through that self-doubt. I kind of had to work through other things to where it finally felt right. It feels like you're going to have this feeling, and you just need to trust that it'll arise. And that too is part of the process, is trusting divine timing. And like I said before, you're cultivating that faith that you'll just know when it's time. You can't miss out on anything you were destined to experience. You cannot miss out on anything you are destined to experience. So if you have this worry that comes up that you got to work with urgency, and that's what I was taught a lot too back in the day, work with a sense of urgency, which I can understand. But for me, that just brings more stress. And then I work from a place of stress versus inspiration. I want to work from a place of inspiration. I don't know about you. I don't really want to be stressed out all the time. Obviously, stress arises, but check in with yourself as you're going down this. Am I feeling more stressed out? Am I truly enjoying this? Now, not to say that as you start something, so for example, when I started doing, hosted my nature gatherings for women. I did a couple and I was like, do I still enjoy this? I mean, it's really not that much work, but why do I feel a little different now? It doesn't necessarily mean, oh no, I'm feeling not excited anymore. It must mean I shouldn't do this anymore. Because I can understand, I had to really feel like, okay, I don't necessarily need to make a decision right now. I can just feel this out. And honestly, it kind of moved through me. I probably just needed to rest. You don't have to, jump into making any quick decisions when you kind of feel into it and you're like, oh, I'm not excited anymore. That's not what that necessarily means. It just might mean maybe I need to take a break. Maybe I just need to rest. Maybe I need to reevaluate what I'm doing, what I'm creating, just get curious. Like I said, it obviously those things are still going to happen. We're still going to have stress. Maybe we still love what we're doing, but something keeps happening. Things don't align. Maybe you tried to rent out a space to do your breath work seminar, and it just keeps getting stressful. The people you're working with aren't quite working out. It doesn't mean that that's a sign that you shouldn't do it. So I just want to get clear on, when you have those feelings of inspiration that, get going, but it's not always going to be that feeling all the time. If that makes sense. Like, it's okay. If you're doing something, ultimately that you love to do, it's not always going to be rainbows and butterflies every time, because even as you're creating that, things are going to arise. Things aren't going to line up. Things are going to happen because you need to face, those feelings and everything. But you'll also know when maybe something that you've done for a little bit, you might need to take a break or go on to something else for a little bit. Like I said before, I started making these vivariums, and I thought, oh my gosh. And it's so crazy how you can be in the moment. It feels so good. You feel like you could just do this for the rest of your life. And so that's what can be confusing too, is you're like, okay, why don't I feel inspired anymore? It's just because you're being called to work on something else. And that's okay. And that can be hard too, because we can have this feeling of like, why do I start and stop something all the time? And that's definitely something to dive into, because we also want to work on, really tune in. Is this just, am I just having an issue with commitment? Is there something deeper there? Or does it just feel like truly I'm just not inspired at the moment to do this? And so there can be, learning some discernment there for sure. We don't just want to say, oh, I started this job that I really need to pay my bills, but I'm not feeling it. So I'm just going to quit and try to find another one. Like, there are things in life that we have to do that are difficult. And sometimes we do have to be disciplined, and we do have to invite in our logical mind, right? Like right now, you might need to have a job that maybe isn't the most exciting to pay the bills so that you can focus on your goals and dreams part-time, right? That's just what you might have to do. And that's okay. Now, obviously, if it's a job where you feel like you're being abused or whatever, then that's where, you might need to find a new job. But just because it's not our favorite thing and we feel like it's not aligned with our purpose, you still might have to do that just for a little bit. But back to kind of what I was saying, just because you're having some stress or whatever during what you're creating doesn't mean that that's not the way. But also checking in with your emotions and how you feel and your intuition is also part of it. But it's a learning process, because if you weren't taught at a young age what intuition was and how to gauge your emotions and in decision making, then it's going to take some time learning that. So during this process, I've learned so much about myself and how things feel right or not and what it feels like in my body. I mean, I'm learning all the time. All of a sudden, it's like this realization, oh, I just realized that this feeling comes up in my body in these situations, and that's what that means. Sometimes we're not even aware that it's happening. And that's what's just so beautiful about this journey, is learning all of that. It's just so much fun. And a lot of work. It can feel like a lot of work, but it's so worth it. Hustling and working hard versus it being difficult and creating this way, it just still feels better and still feels worth it. Like, it's hard because I'm a stay-at-home mom of 4 kids, and right now my kids are actually in the same house as me. They're in the basement watching something so I could, record this real quick, because my children are just amazing. My older boys are so helpful. But it can feel frustrating when I'm like, oh my gosh, I have this urge, I have to record right now, but like everything is chaos. And I just have to take a deep breath and trust the divine timing. It'll work out. Whatever is supposed to come through me as messages through me into my podcast will happen in the moment, and I'll say exactly what needs to be said. Sometimes, if you're a busy mom or you're busy with your job and you feel in the moment like, I need to have time to do this, but I'm struggling to find the time will open up for you when it's meant to. Obviously, make an effort, whatever you got to do. I realized I wasn't quite taking care of myself. I need to enroll somebody. I need to delegate. I need to, okay, plan with my husband better or get a babysitter. So, take that action for yourself, but also just trust, if it's just literally in this moment not working out, it's okay. I'm so excited for you and what you're creating. And we're just going to keep diving into this, because there's definitely more to this. There's layers and so much to discuss and talk about. But I can feel the message coming to an end, because that was just a lot. That energy felt, kind of sweaty right now. I hope you can feel it. I hope all this is super helpful. And don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, comment. Oh, I would love to hear comments. Feedback would just be amazing. And share if you feel like what you're listening to would be helpful to any of your friends that are on this journey. Please do. And I'm so excited to share more. And I hope you guys have an amazing day. I love you.